Good evening, ladies. I am, as ever, a little bit early, so just bear with me while I do a little bit of catching up with social media activities, because that's always a good move. There we are, we can go into there. There we are. Hey, well, that one can go there. And that should be cool. And hopefully that will work. And I can see that I've got some people joining me. Good evening, Joe. Thank you. I just need to let me just do some fiddling around with that. Cool. That's that one sorted. That's that one sorted. Glasses are off. I can see my phone, so I know what's going on. Hi, Sheila. Welcome. So we will just wait a few more minutes because I have gone live early, and that's cool. Was my intention. I always like to make sure I'm a little bit early in amongst the grand scheme of things. Oh, I've got some water. I might even be organised even better. So here we are. Don't know how many more people will join us at this time. Hi, Kellis. Welcome from Florida. I think it must be probably afternoon where you are at the moment. Hi, Jill. Hope you're enjoying Whitby. Good evening, Jan. Hello, Barbara. Hi, Isabella from Hungary. It's lovely to see everyone. So I'm in my conservatory, which is where I craft. So currently it's nice and sunny, so that is always cool. The computer is now telling me that it is just switched to 6 o'clock. So let me do some with my have that. Hey, I like it when a plan comes together. And there we are. So yeah, that's not too bad a shot of where we're up to. Let me just wiggle that. There we are. That's a bit better. That's not so skewy whiffy. So, let's move that out of the way before I touch something I don't want to. Hi, Anna. Hi, Rosa. Welcome. So I'm going to do a little bit of playing tonight with the sunflower art papers from the recent release from Stamperia, which of course Penta helped to distribute. That's better. Got some bits on here. I've got some pieces of elastic wood. For those of you that are in the UK, these are ones that were bought from Create and Craft from Le Blanche. Those of you that are in Europe should be able to easily get them from Le Blanche. I suspect they may well be on, or similar may well be on the Penta or Pentacolor website. Hi, Crafty Jacks. Welcome. Good evening, Martin. Thank you for joining us this evening. So, and then I've got some precast pieces of resin because it takes too long to do those and set them, and they've just been primed with Penta bonding primer, this one, because it is definitely better off left to dry naturally. Good evening, Elizabeth. I hope the Nordic states are nice and warm at the moment. These pieces come from the one of the 2 ephemera packs that are available with the collections. Your new addiction is dangerous. It's a dangerous addiction. And these pieces are just elastic wood. So let me just do a little bit of popping around here. So this is one of the rice papers from the collection. I have a wood artboard. This is one that of the shapes that I bought to create and craft not so long ago, but any artboard will work in any shape that you have. I just quite like the shape of this one. So for those of you that bought it, have wondering what to do, maybe, or lost your inspiration, maybe this is a good move. And I have just primed it with a Pentacolor acrylic primer so that it's white, and my colours of my rice paper will then pop. So to glue my rice paper down, I am using Pentacolor decoupage glue and varnish. There we are, that one. And I've chosen the matte one, but you know, the finish is ultimately up to you to choose the one that works for you. I just need a little coat of this. They have a glitter one, which will be just perfect for Christmas projects. I think they have a shiny one. They have an ultra matte version. So really lots of options to choose from, and all of these are not only a glue, but they are also a sealer, which is quite important when you're working with rice papers, because it allows you then to do things on the top without fear of things coming apart. Let me just give this a reasonably even coat. Make sure I've got the edges, because that's where things tend to come off. I'll lid that for the moment. Hi Martin, welcome. Now then, are you going to share with us what your biscuit of choice is this evening? So I've glue underneath. I've lined it up at the bottom. It actually doesn't matter too much if it's a bit on the wonky, not covering the whole piece, because of what we're going to do around the edges to give it a frame. And then I've made sure I haven't got too many wrinkles in my piece. I think I've got some lumps underneath there, but there we are. That will work. So it's a very pretty rice paper. It's one of the new ones from the Stamperia collection that's available in lots of places in the UK. It was on Create and Craft recently, but it won't be on. I doubt it's still on there. Though it was a monthly mega deal, so it might just be. I don't know when their extended dispatch was, but as I say, lots of places in the UK have them, and I suspect therefore lots of places around Europe have also got them. And it is very pretty and very, very summery, with its beautiful sunflowers, which in the UK are just about becoming into flower, I think. So when I add my glues to things like this, I tend to make sure that I am keeping my brush strokes all in one direction, and it just means that if I do decide to add anything over the top, like an antiquing medium, which isn't going to be my plan for today, but this is habit, then actually it's all even, it's all up and down, it's sort of not everything going in every direction, and I just think that you get a nicer result with doing that. No, I haven't got rain, Sarah. It's beautifully sunny. We did have rain yesterday, so that is going to go on to, as Mr. Minnis would say, the ground floor of my craft room, aka the floor. Now then, what else have I not got out? I know I had some white paint at one point, so there we are. Let me just pick up all of the bits and pieces that I have for doing some of this with. And we've got some bits that I need to dry. So I have deliberately chosen not to prime these pieces, because I don't mind the brown showing through, and I'm going to add a little bit of glamour to this with a product that is called a sparkling gel, and I've chosen Thorn Gold because it has a brown glaze to it and a little bit of gold sparkle, so it'll just give a very pretty look. And of course the centers of our of our sunflowers are sort of brownie coloured, aren't they? Orangey brownie mix. So I just thought it would work quite well. I know I will have to trim the edges of these. I've overcut them, and that was a deliberate decision. Good evening, Liz. Thank you for joining me, and I shall make sure I'm tuned in to your live later on, because I think it's really important. Hi, Josephine. Thank you for joining us this evening. I'm just making it basically a summary mixed media piece of wall art tonight. Ask us what we're going to make, and I always have to think about it and then struggle to come up with a name, or I'll give it a name that's fairly generic and then work my project around it. And this project has evolved. I've done a couple of boxes over the last month or so, and I nearly did another one tonight and then decided maybe people would be a bit fed up with boxes because, well, there's only so many you need at the end of the day. And much as I love them and they are very usable, sometimes you just don't need to have so many of them. Right, eeny, meeny, miny. And that wonky shape will flatten down. Yeah, some of the elastic wood is expensive, Joan. There's no question about it. I tend to buy it when it's on offer. I have been sent a big box by one of the elastic wood companies. There are more than one. But what it does give you is a very usable, durable end result. And so if you're going to make upcycle furniture, then it's worth the expense, I would say. Otherwise, my suggestion is that you just get some border molds, from, of which there's lots on the market, and then you can cast your own from clay or resin. Because I have a shaped piece on the top of mine, clay would probably be easier than resin, but if you got it out of your molds quickly enough, then you could shape it. So yeah, it depends on what you're going to do, what the end result is for, and the steps are essentially the same regardless. So just because I'm using these, which I agree can be an expensive product, it doesn't really matter, because you can take the concepts of what I'm doing and and then adapt it. The easiest way for these, because I'm using them to edge my wooden board, I would say, is just to use some resin or some border molds with either resin or clay. Yeah, that's a very good solution. Use what you've got, make the best most of every single bit of it. It's just a cool product when it comes to doing things. As for a for a craft project, clay would probably work just as well. But for upcycling, repurposing a furniture piece, then you probably want something that has more longevity and more solidity than I think the clay has. But obviously choices are individuals, aren't they? And we should all craft within our budgets with what is affordable. But you can see that this paint, which is a sparkling gel, is covering really nicely unprimed pieces. And the other week I used the red version on unprimed natural wood. So that they're really, really, it's just a fabulous product to have. Sorry if I've just made anyone seasick by clopping my camera holder, which I deliberately dropped down for these lives so that the image is not so a million miles away and you can actually see what we're doing. It's a particular bugbear when the craft image is so small you can't see it, so I try and make sure that I'm not one of them. And I do hope that I have enough crafty friends who would tell me if they thought that I was doing something wrong, or message me privately and say maybe you ought to try, because we've all got a space to learn and grow and evolve, haven't we? No matter how old we are, it's all a learning process. Let's make sure we've got most of that covered, because I don't really want to come back to that. There we are. And as I say, some bits I know I will need to trim. So, right, that can go in there. That can go down there. Those two pieces can go over there. We'll do some upping and downing. It's good for the waistline, ladies. Great for the waistline. There we are. Remove gunk from hands, because otherwise we'll have an icky, sticky, ucky mess. And we'll transfer bits that I don't want onto my next pieces. Have I managed to de-yoke myself? I think I have. So I have some different bits here. So let me go with some of these. Let's get these moderately organised into things. So I'm sorry, ladies, that these cross, I think, maybe 3 different molds. There's a mold with the sunflowers, there's the mold with the ducks or the geese, also has the washing line on it, and then this one, the butterflies come from the mold that has lots of poppies on it. And I've got a plan for the poppies for Remembrance Sunday, because in the UK I think that's traditionally where we will use most of our poppies. So there we are. I might need to grab another colour paint for those butterflies. I'm not too sure I want them in yellows, and I've left out the blues, which was not perhaps the most intelligent thing to do. Anyway, so I have, there we are. Let me just pick up these. So I've got acrylic paint matte in salmon. There we are. Acrylic paint matte in sun yellow, and acrylic paint matte in vintage brown. But any shades of yellow will work for you. I think I might need to add some water. I need to add some water. That's clearly been open on a hot day. Let me just give that a good squiggle of the water. A little mix up. There we are. Just as well I decided to use that today, otherwise that would have been past the point of reconstituting, I think, if I wasn't very careful. So the advantage of having water-based mediums is that it's the water that goes, so you can, if they are getting thick, just give them a little bit of an extra squirt with some water. Add it gradually, obviously. There we are. So that we don't end up contaminating stuff too much. I will try and be a good girl tonight. So I'll add some of the sun yellow. That's probably way more than I need, but that's also fine. Did that. And by doing this, what it's meaning is that I'm actually less likely to end up with a oh yeah, with my paints thickening up. You can see that this one, which hasn't been left open to the elements, is a little bit more fluid, which is also cool. And I could have gone for an orange, thank you, Jax, colour, a more orange colour, but actually I didn't particularly want too big a colour gradient. So let's pop that into there. And we'll stick that in there to wipe that off. Let's see if I can manage to de-yuck that so that again I am not ending up getting too sticky icky. So there we are. Let's start out with this simple one. So this is one of the, just one of the molds that are in the big the big sunflower mold. And I like to, you know, you'll often see me doing this, which is why I said, why again it's quite good to decant your products. So I'm mixing on my, you know, on my resin and allowing the colours to blend, which for me works very well. But if you, it will result in you contaminating pots if you don't decant first. So and you can then add more detail so that things aren't completely flat in colour, because plants aren't all one colour, are they? You know, the sunflowers definitely are shades of, and it might not look much different to you, but I definitely know that I've got this the different colours adding in, and I'm allowed, I can now mix these on the surface, adding just some extra detail and adding some colour variation to my piece. And I'm going to let that drop. I might actually add some of that onto the centre of there. There we are. And I'm not going to leave it that colour, because the centre of the sunflowers is actually much darker, isn't it? So let me just add in some browns. There we are. Doesn't have to be that precise. So let's just wipe that. There we are. Blanche, I think for most of us crafters, it's keeping our craft rooms tidy is a continuous struggle. I have more stuff in my craft room than I can probably ever hope to use, and it is every which way, and I do occasionally have to just be completely ruthless and throw things out, stroke donate. I've got a couple of friends who do lots of junk journaling, so my papers tend to go that way. And I live very, very close to a children's hospice, and they will always take papers and things. They stopped through lockdown, I think, because they just didn't, they weren't having so many people in. But and I believe quite a lot of the adult hospices will also take stuff. Yeah, I do try to have mine organised, Liz. It's not. I can usually lay my hands on what I want. That's always a good starting point, isn't it? You see, and then I've drifted away from the camera because I tend to. Well, I work standing up. I think that relates to when I was a surgeon, and traditionally surgeons operate standing up. unless you're a hand surgeon or a plastic surgeon when they sit down, but then they're operating theatres, operating tables for hours. So there we are. So yeah, we've got a little bit of painting to do today, but overall I don't think this is a live that's going to take a crazy silly amount of time tonight. Because I pared it back to keep it to a manageable level. Well, I think it's at a manageable level. You might choose to disagree with me, but there we are. So as I say, I primed my pieces with bonding primer before the live and left that to dry. It takes, you can heat dry it, but when you've got pieces that have got lots of recessed areas, it tends to, most of your primers tend to well in those, and that takes a lot longer to dry. So I often do prime things like this up front before a live. I also think actually it's better for the makes if you can do that. There we have a little bud up there. There we are. So as you can see, I'm literally just adding my colours, letting them colour blend, so I don't have a single coloured flower. Again, the choice is yours, really. I think there are some beautiful reds and browns, bright, dark reds and almost burnt orangey sunflowers around. You see, I'm having word blindness this evening. It always doesn't help, does it? But hey ho. Let's see if we can get around here. We might give it a blitz dry before we paint the greenery on. And you could spend absolutely hours painting each and every single petal of this if you're so inclined. I'm not that anal about it, and I'm happy with the end results that I get. But if it's not the look you like, then spend much longer and get and paint it to your style. That's the beauty, joy of handcrafting, isn't it? Is that we can make stuff to suit ourselves. There we are. I tend to cover the acrylic better in one coat. So, Elizabeth, it depends totally on what surface I'm working on. If I'm working on a porous surface, I will use either an acrylic primer or gesso, because it will sit into those quite nicely and cover. If I am working with a non-porous surface, so a plasticized frame from a well-known Swedish furniture shop, then I tend to use the bonding primer. And if I'm decoupaging or doing anything on glass, then I will always go to the bonding primer over gesso. I just feel that it gives you a better overall finish. So the bonding primer is really was really designed for non-porous surfaces, whereas as gesso and the acrylic primers were designed for using on porous surfaces, so your paper boxes, your papier-mâché boxes, your wood items, and things like that. And a resin of and I would use that on for paper clay. That would be the other thing that I would use my acrylic primers for. But when I'm working with resin, which is a plasticized surface, because it just keeps the surface much more durable. I know that historically people have been taught to use gesso for decoupaging and working on glass projects, but the reality of life is that it isn't as durable, and it does tend to chip off over time. So if your finances allow it, then I would absolutely say it's worth having, worth investing in pots of the gesso, because it just does give you a more long-lasting professional finish, if that makes sense. If it's not a piece that's going to be handled, and it's not a piece that's going to be around for a long time, then it probably doesn't matter so very much. But if it is going to be there for a while, and I personally think that if you're going to the trouble of making something for yourself, you want it to be a nice piece that is going to be there and look good, and that you're not going to worry about what will happen as you handle it. So let's just add so you can see that I'm just mixing my colours on here, so that I've got the centres of my sunflowers are not all exactly the same, if that makes sense. They tend to be darker at the edges, don't they? But again, who's watching? The botanical police are not going to be out and about, are they? Well, and if they are, it's their problem. There we are. Right, let me give that a little bit of a dry. I'm going to give these a waft with my dryer, because I think if I try and paint the green onto those without having given them a little bit of a dry, then I'm going to be transferring stuff over, which is not quite the look that I want. So let me get rid of, she says, movies paint around. There we are. And let me just pop those there a minute, because I can see a centre that I have not covered there. So let me just add those bits to that. Cool. I'll tell you what, whilst those are drying, with that there, I've got my little geese. And geese have little yellow beaks, so we'll just add a little yellow beak to the goose. And we're going to have some yellow feet. Because why not? I could have gone for an orange colour if I wanted, but yellow beak will work for me. There we are. A little bit reasonably accurate with that. Again, I'm not going to attempt to be ornithologically correct, because life is too short. And it's more about a suspicion than it having to be exactly accurate. There we are. Cool. Let's just pop that so that he's pointing at it. I'm just going to go and grab a different paint for the butterflies. I don't want orange and yellow butterflies. And I know exactly which one I want, so that's cool. Yeah. So I've just grabbed myself another of my sparkling gels, and this time it's called Green Gold, but it's not green gold. No matter which way you look at it, it's more of a bluey green than that. So that those can go onto there, and it will just add a little bit of shimmer to here, a bit of extra colour. There we are. And we'll make my butterflies look pretty. I think it would be, Sarah. Are you talking about DVC ones from a while ago, because they're very pretty? And yes, I do think with the correct, with a with an appropriate sentiment, that will work quite nicely for you, for a sympathy card, my darling. They're a little bit of a nightmare, aren't they? Because they're the cards that we all have to make from time to time, but actually often our hearts aren't in it because we're also grieving, and it is just very difficult. There we are. So I now have two pretty bluey greeny, slightly shimmery butterflies, so that can go over there. Let's see if we now have these reasonably dry. I can wait. So excuse me, ladies, while I just leave that to dry next to there. And I have some, this is the Pentacolor Matte Acrylic in Olive. Yes, Sarah, that is a beautiful colour, and it's a soft colour and paper, and it will work perfectly well for you for that purpose. Okay, cool. So that is Olive, and I've also got a little bit of Vintage Yellow. So I can mix these on and soften them up. There we are. And this, of course, is why, ladies, we need lots of products, because we need lots of different colours for your notes. So there we are. That was, I think that's not quite dry, but we're getting there. Look at the state of my hands. Right, excuse me, but I cannot carry on with it in that state, because that's really not what I want to do. I think the dragonflies will work. It's a winged insect, isn't it? So I think it will be okay and acceptable. I think that some of the rules of the past don't necessarily apply so much now as it is. There we are. Oh dear, oh dear. All right, let's just de-yuck fingers. So we can paint these leaves that are separate. Sometimes you need two layers, even with the bonding primer, and that's fine. We might give it a little bit of a, you can see how by just adding the two colours together, I'm mixing up my tones, and it's allowing me to introduce graded colouring to my piece, without having to work really very hard at it. There we are. And yes, you could think about which direction you're wanting the light to be coming from, but for these, but I'm not bothered. So but each to their own. and this won't be the finished layer anyway, so yeah. Right, let us now pick up the next bit. So that one is reasonably dry. There we are. And I just think when you're doing things like this, actually mixing your colours makes something look maybe just a little bit more natural. If that makes sense, rather than, because in nature things aren't just one colour, are they? So that's part of my rationale for why I'm mixing. There we are. And if you're using some of the distressing liquids and things, you can actually disguise a multitude of inaccuracies with your painting relatively easily by doing that. So, and highlight your details. So hence this way of part working. So I'm just using the point of my brush to push in to the gaps for the leaves where they join the petals. Because I think I get a nicer result by doing that. There we are. So use your brushes to your advantage, because that makes life more sense. You can see how they've splayed there into the two petals. There we are. And one of the things with some of these bigger plasticized molds from Stamperia is that they have started to double them up, the heights of them, so that you end up, it's quite almost, I won't say impossible, but quite difficult, quite a challenge to cast without some of the back pieces being coloured. So I will use probably some vintage powders to add into the base of here, so I can cover some of these areas up that I've left white at the moment, because it will help disguise some of those areas that as I say, they've built almost into the molds to give the mold stability and to allow the multiple layers of dimension that there are in these molds nowadays. There we are. So we'll just pop that into there. So let's tuck that out of harm's way. And let's give these a little bit of a waft. And I'll move them out of the way. There we are. Pop them there, drying for the moment. Let's use the noise. So my wooden board is now touch dry. It's not completely dry, so I'm going to, before taking my sandpaper to it, I am just going to give it a little bit of an extra dry. I think butterflies in vellum will be lovely and very appropriate. There we are. So if I move that away from my camera. There we are. There we are. Let's pop that over there, out of harm's way. And so I'm going to just take the excess now off. And because I've dried it, it's coming off really quite easily. Now I could just use these pieces that I've taken off here to patch, but I'm actually going to cover it so it's not a problem. But it really wouldn't show if I did do that. So it's a good tip if you've got just a tiny area, because a piece of rice paper isn't big and you're not big enough, and you know that you're going to be taking it off other areas, then you can add to match. Cool. So that's going to go there, that's going to go there. They still need to dry. Let me shovel this lot out of the way and move that up there. Don't want those on there, don't want those on there. That can go there, that can go there. Right, let me just move some of that lot, and then we might be able to see where we're up to. There we are. Cool. So these pieces are not quite dry. So this is, if I held it that way, you can see that it's a very wonky piece. So I'm just going to give it a dry, because it's not completely dry at the moment. And as I heat it, it will become soft and I'll be able to flatten it out. And it might go a bit more wobbly before I do that. There we are. One of the things, if you have got this stuff, is that actually you're better off putting your glue on when it's warm. And you can use a good old-fashioned wood glue will work. Or the Pentacolor Express glue. I don't think you need to use a gel medium for these, but a nice wood glue works perfectly. And for me, the Express glue does. And I've got pieces that I've glued with this that I've had around now for 3, 4, 5 years, and it hasn't shifted. So there we are. So I'm just going to give that a little smooth out. So I've got a reasonable coat, and I'm going to pop that one onto the bottom of there. De-sticky my fingers. There we are. That glue will dry clear, but I will pick up the excess in a minute. So if I now give this a little bit of a heat, make sure it's on the board, then I can make sure it's glued down flat. Yeah, and we will just get a wet brush, and I can fish out, maybe not one that's rock solid, but there we are. We can lift out the excess glue from my project. I've just got a baby wipe in my hand, so that's going to help lift it out. There we are. Pop that down, give that a swash. And the joy of the Express glue is that it does what it says on the tin. It grabs really quite quickly. Here we are. Long term, I will tackle those edges. Once this is glued in place, I can reheat it and then just take a knife and then glue the ends back down again. We've all gone very quiet. I'm not seeing any messages for a little bit. So I do hope that that's not because everyone is fed up or bored. Just get this to go there. I think you'll see why just adding the edging makes such a big difference to your piece. Before I stick this down, I am going to just work out where I'm going to add some extra pieces. So right at the beginning, I had out some pieces from the ephemera pack, and I've chosen this beautiful truck and also the villa, and I'm just going to give the edges a little bit of a brown. Now these little things, because it's ephemera, she says, have a backing on them, which is always a little bit of a challenge. And you could always just add some glue if you want to. So let's just take the backing off that. Hey. So that is going to go there. So I'm going to pop that just there. There was method into why I needed to do that first, because otherwise, once I've got the thank you, Jam. Once I've got the wood down, I don't want, you know, I want it to just be allowed to dry and not have to disturb it. So there we are. And of course, once I've done this bit, I don't want to be, and I'm deliberately tucking them over, and I'm not using the whole of that image intentionally. Okay, so before I glue that one down, I can turn this over and grab, she says, if she could see what she's done with it, a craft knife. Can I see what I've done with it? No. Aha, there it is. So I'm just going to trim that off. It's going to be difficult, I think. And again, I'm not going to be using that precisely because I'm going to be covering the edge anyway, so that's less of a problem. So we have some focal imagery onto there. We've got a flat piece of this. The ephemera are lovely to work with. They have a little bit of a shine, Elizabeth, but they are more substantial than you just cutting out pieces of paper, and it's certainly quicker than cutting out pieces, fussy cutting images, sticking them onto, gluing them onto rice paper, onto stone paper, so that they're more robust and putting them down. For me, they have been a really, really good addition to the product lineup, and I use quite a lot of them, surprisingly. So there we are. I think we might need a bit more of that there. I know we don't need very much of it, but you do need enough. All right, excellent. So I'm going to line these pieces up. There we are. And glue that down. I know I've got pieces at the end, and that's intentional. I will trim those once these are properly glued down. There we are. So my concept was that this almost looked like it would be a fence around a farmyard, maybe. That's where my brain was going as to why I chose this. You could use like lollipop sticks and cut lots of them off and make your own little fence. That would work really well. Yeah, the ephemera is really, really handy. Really, really handy. Right, here. This piece might be a bit bit more of a challenge. So this is the big arch piece, and I know I have a piece that I will have to cut off this, and I'm deliberately gluing it like this at the moment, even though I haven't heated it, because I'm going to have to heat as I go to get it. And no doubt I will end up adding some more glue as I go as well, to cover it all. It's because I'm wanting to fit it around a curved surface. So let me just pop this round, so I can pop that onto there and that onto there, and that's reasonably shaped. But you can see, even though I have got this curved, at this point my curve is off kilter. So let me just heat this up. Leave that to dry, leave that to dry, leave that to dry. This is the bit that I knew would be a bit more fluffy. Because it always does take a while to get these round the curved surface. So that can go onto there, that can go onto there. That can go there, that can go there. And it's easier to cut your pieces slightly longer than you need them, than to try and try to attach pieces in. Well, you can attach pieces in if that's what you want to do. It's just easier not to. Yeah. So I can actually see at this point, I've got a couple of extra pieces. So this is a different brand, Elizabeth. It is Art Elastic Wood. But I think Would You Bend have exactly the same shapes. And it's essentially the same product, just made and manufactured, marketed by two different companies. So I think either they work in exactly the same way. There we are. Right, let me just squash all that. Let that it just needs now time to grab. But you can see that I've now got a nice arched almost window, and I will take some of the brown when I'm edging it and get rid of the white. There we go. So that can sit down there. Cool. And with a bit of luck, that now means that some of my other pieces are dry. So let's swap right over there. So the geese are beautiful. But they're a bit monotone, and I've deliberately not covered them with anything other than the white bonding primer. So I'm going to use a Lisseur gel, which is like a stain, almost as an antiquing fluid. So I'm just going to brush it over everything. And then I'm going to take a dry paper towel and I can wipe back. And remember, I can add white over the top if I want to over this, because so I can take back. So my geese will not stay as white as they were. So let me yes, there was an ice cream van. You were not mistaken. So I can I've covered it in that sort of murky blacky grey, I like that because it's not a true black. The antiquing gel is a true black, whereas this is a softer, more grey colour. There we are, and it's picked up the eye beautifully for me. I'm just going to clean that off there, and I can now see my feather details. So let's just repeat that one. And you really don't need to use huge amounts of this stuff, it has to be said. But again, for me, it's about the versatility. You could, I guess, just dilute down some black acrylic paint, put it on, and then wipe it back. If that's what if that's all you've had, and you wanted to do something similar to this, there we are. So those are my two geese. I think I might just take a little bit more off theirs. So you can, as I say, you've got full control. Now, once the Leser gels are dry, they are permanent. So, definitely don't do a big batch of these and then think, oh, now I need to wipe back, because you'll end up not being able to wipe back very well. Yeah, they do indeed. So let's pop that one over there, because I don't want to. And let's give my hands a wipe, because I'm just about to pick up some ivory Leser gel for the butterfly, and I don't think that would be a very good look mixed with the brown. So let's just, while we're at it, let's put some of this stuff out of the way, out of harm's way. There we are, that can be lidded for the moment. And I really don't, I know watching me clean my hands is maybe not the most exhilarating viewing, but on a live it just has to be done. I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen. There we are. Cool. There we are. Let's pop that over there. Pop that over there. So we now have two little butterflies. We're not a million miles off being finished, in all fairness to everyone. Right, dry paper towel, because again, if you try and wipe this off with a wet paper towel, you're likely to disturb your acrylic paint, particularly when it's, there we are. So that has taken my butterfly from like this to like that. And you could argue that maybe ought to be black, but actually I just wanted a softer end result than black would give me for the whole project. There we are. So let's do that one. There we are. Two butterflies. Okay, over there. And this is why, when you know why I have so much stuff in my craft room. So how to tackle this, in particular the white areas that I know I have left in there. So I'm going to grab my beloved patina Umbra. So I'm not a great fan of brown, but it definitely has its places. And it will mute some of these colours down, and it will pipe into the recesses, and it will allow me to have a nice finished piece. What did you love, Elizabeth? The butterfly, or the fact that I've now covered everything in nice dark brown paste? I've got loads on here and I'm going to be lifting a lot of it back off, so it's worth me just lifting it off here. Rather than, so the Umbra is a wax product, so unlike the Surgels, which dry quite quickly, it will take a bit longer to set. In fact, it will take several weeks to properly set. So it doesn't matter when I'm using this that I cover everything and then just wipe what off I don't want. Yes, absolutely. I think the Umbra is gentler somehow than some of the darker brown products. I have to say, I like it very much, and although it comes in a deceptively little pot, I use it an awful lot, and the pots go on a long way. I've only in the last 6 years managed to go through 2 pots completely. I think, to be fair, this is my 3rd one and it's getting there, but when you think how prolifically I create, I don't think that is bad. Right, so let's just wipe this off. And if you wanted to, once this was done, you could add some of 3D varnish to make it glossy, but I'm probably not going to tonight. There we are. So the paper towel trick works really quite nicely, and it is gentler. So if you add a wet baby wipe, you'll start to lift off the colour beneath. If you want a very distressed look, then then that's fine. If you want the colours to be preserved, then you're better off just using a thing. It completely changes them. Completely changes them, and and it blends the colours, and I just find that for me it works. I mean, I use the white a lot and I use Umbra a lot. I've recently discovered antique gold, and I have to say that is truly beautiful. There we are. So now you can see I've taken my pieces from being a single colour and added depth and shading into them. So let's just tackle this piece, and then we will just start putting it all together. There we are. Let's just get some of that out of there. Okay, let's just soften that down a little bit. So where some of this paint wasn't quite as dry as it might have been, I've just lifted a little bit of the green there. I'm just going to disguise it with a little bit of Umbra over the top. that was my fault, because as I say, I've got areas here that were probably not as dry as they should have been. There we are. Cool. Right, so let's pop that back in that pot. Oh, you daft bat. Sorry for being speaking not very nicely of myself, but there we are. Let's just do that last piece that we conveniently managed to miss. There we are. Because having prepped it, we might as well use it. So, and I don't know. I think I know at least one very well-known crafter who, bless her, manages to do this without getting her hands mucky. I'm not that lady. Right, let's just get rid of that lot. Pop that in there. There we are. So, as I say, I will edge this in my brown later on, but I'm not going to do that on camera because we could just be here for longer than I perhaps wish to be. So that is going to go there. Now then, so let us just have, now these are left-handed and right-handed, just to be difficult. There we are, one left-handed, one right-handed, so that's going to sit there. That's going to sit up on there. That is going to sit there. That is going to sit into there. That will sit there. Right. Let me just revert to the other bits that I have out, because there's just a few little extra pieces. Now I've got turpentine for cleaning with, and I just have a pot that's always got it sitting in it, Elizabeth, so hence my putting it there. So this little piece is from the decorative chipboard. Again, it's from the ephemera pack. The resin piece is quite a lot bigger when you cast it. It's beautiful, but it is, yeah, quite a lot bigger. So I'm going to hang my washing in the air, because why not? Why not indeed? And then let's just, so I know that I want that's going to sit there. That can sit there, approximately central. Do I need quite so much? Possibly not, but hey ho. Let's just pop that there. And then I can move my pieces out so I can see that I'm not entirely symmetrical. So let's just move that. And then, so ladies, just remember that the matte gel medium does not dry clear. You can use it to give a faux airbrushed look to things, or so you really do need to make sure that when you're doing these, that my screen's just decided to get rid of a comment, so that you've properly cleaned things up and before, otherwise you'll end up with bits that you don't perhaps want where you don't want them, if that makes sense. And the joy of the gel medium is that actually it's going to allow me to move these pieces about. I think, Jax, that Carol, that when it comes to placing things, it's a very personal thing, and I think the answer is that the more you play with them, the more you do with them, the happier you will be with what you're doing. And I know that sounds difficult and doesn't necessarily answer your problems, but actually it is just a question of playing, and until it's what you've got in front of you works for your eye. And I don't think there's an easy answer to that in any other way. I wish there was, but I don't think there is. I think it is about what works for you and your eyes. So he's going to be a bit of a pain too, because I want him on and off. There we are. So he will sit there. So I will now lift off my excess glue. So it's not in the way. So I've got 3 other bits to do. I'm going to say off camera tomorrow when this lot is all settled down. Hi Patricia, welcome. We're not far off being finished, darling, but of course it will be available for rewatching. So I just felt the whole thing that's something up here. Why did I put the lid on that? So hence I did the butterflies, because I wanted just a little bit more in my piece. Now, Carol, you'll have just seen me tweak that and fiddle with that sunflower, and I tweaked and fiddled with that sunflower because I could see where the end of the washing line was, and I didn't want it visible, if that makes sense. So that's why I tweaked and fiddled with that piece. There we are. Right, I think now for me, pieces are not finished if they are not they don't have titles. And I ummed and ahed about where to put a title here, and you'll see I've got a gap down here, which I'm not a great fan of. So I've got another die cut here, which I can tuck into there, having edged it, and I've got the word fantasy, because in my head this is a make-believe farm where the geese are out in the fields roaming, where the owners have left and abandoned a truck, gone out for the day maybe, and left their washing hanging to dry. And we've got beautiful fields. So there we are. So I am going to pop. I'm just going to shuffle that up a little bit higher so that can now sit there. And I will need a goodly blob of gel medium there, because it's only just about suspended on one little piece, and that's never going to sit long term like that. So a good blob of that down to each side, and that can go onto there at a jaunty angle, covering where the base of the stem is, and it gives me a grounding point for that flower. So at this stage we could add some dry brushing if we want to, or we could add some splatters, and I'm actually going to add some splatters, I think, just to link all of the different layers together. And I'm only going to use white for this because I think that the black would just be too heavy for the overall effect. So let me just pop that over there. So this is just white acrylic paint. There we are. And that layer on the top of the splatters links the front to the back of the piece. So as I say, later on, when this lot is all nicely solidly set, I am going to trim off these little pieces at the end, and then I will paint with my Thorn Gold sparkling gel the edges of the wood, so that it's less obviously, yeah, you know, so it's all the same color all the way around. So I hope that's okay for everyone. Please take care, enjoy the rest of your evening, and stay safe until we can meet again. I don't know if I can move. There we are. That will sort that out.